Doo-doo-dee. It's Nandi!
Hello everyone, it's Nandi here again, and I'm bringing you some content that we haven't yet done on this channel, and is something that I hope you all enjoy because it's fairly unique. And I've got with me a guest today, Towen, who I'll introduce shortly. Today's video is essentially just looking at the stats of the characters in the game, and it's something that I noticed when I was doing my Darkstrider video. At the moment in the game, we don't really have any easy way of comparing one character to another, especially when they're released, to get some feel for how strong or weak they are. But essentially today's video is a stats video on all of the characters in the game. So with that said, I'd like to introduce my guests. So thanks for coming along, Towen. You're an ambassador to the game, and you're part of the Eternal Nexus Guild. I was just hoping that you could start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself, your gaming history, and what's brought you to Tacticus.
Hi Nandi, thanks for having me on. That's right, I'm part of the Eternal Nexus Alliance. We're sort of 4 guilds with like a mini Panzerhorus, and I run one of the guilds there. I've been playing Tacticus since release. In fact, I was involved in the beta. The way I came into the game is I actually played Snowprint's previous game, Riven Guard. Tacticus is basically a 40k clone of Riven Guard. That's how I became interested in the game. So this is going to sound a bit like heresy, but all of my 40k knowledge actually comes from Tacticus. But I have played mobile games quite a lot. I played a game called Darkfire Heroes, which was a Rovio game that closed down actually on the 1st of March. And we have a few members within our community who moved over from Darkfire Heroes into Riven Guard and then into Tacticus. So there's a few people here who I've been playing games with for 4 or 5 years. So we're quite a tight-knit community in that sense.
Great. I think that's fantastic. I mean, this game and a lot of gaming is all about community, and I can definitely empathize with those sentiments. So we've been working on this video for a couple of weeks behind the scenes, and we've spoken about the importance of having some basis to have numbers and stats for characters so that we can compare them more sort of directly. And you're coming into this as the numbers guy. Those of you or those listeners that are on Reddit particularly will be familiar with your amazing spreadsheet where you've number crunched basically everything in the game. And I guess the first question to ask is how do you do it? How do you get all those numbers and formulae?
So most of the information in my spreadsheet you can actually find on the wiki. The wiki's superb. It's an unofficial wiki, but it's really the most comprehensive source of all the data. So essentially what my spreadsheet does is take the information from the wiki and make it an interactive version by actually just doing the maths behind all the explanations. That's essentially what it is. A lot of my numbers basically come straight from the wiki or are verified by the wiki. Once I have worked out the actual equations, I can then back calculate a lot of new stuff. I can back calculate the answers when a new character or a new unit comes out based off the equations that I know. And then some of it is just guesswork. So there's certain interactions within the game where we don't quite know the order of operations. So I look at how known systems work. I take a guess, put that into the spreadsheet and see if it comes out right. So part of it is really documenting my understanding of the game, and you'll see that during January and February I made several updates to the game as my understanding improved. I was fixing bugs, but also fixing things where I thought certain interaction worked in one way and actually worked differently.
Okay, I mean, it sounds, for those of you that haven't seen the spreadsheets and also haven't seen the wiki, I would encourage you to do that, because it is very, very comprehensive, and the formulae being used are certainly well over my head. But the numbers are robust, and they've been checked and verified. And you've given me these numbers. A lot of my viewers are interested in me and came to my channel primarily for infographics. So you'll be pleased to know that I've put everything that Town and I have spoken about into infographics for you guys to take away and digest and share amongst your alliance mates. On that infographic, the health and armor values are self-explanatory. You've said that you've taken them from the wiki, and you've kind of scaled them up according to leveling. But let's talk about the numbers, because that's the damage numbers, because those are a little bit trickier to understand. And I know it's a really, really complicated formula. So can you explain how you came up with these damage numbers in a sort of simple fashion, if you will?
Yes, sure, no problem. So the first thing I should say is the health and the armor numbers are actually the base numbers, the actual base numbers before any scaling happens. So and they're obtainable from the wiki. But the damage numbers. Now, if you look in game and you look at the character sheet, and it shows you all the character attributes, you'll see on the damage section there's a number of attributes that go into damage. There's the damage type, there's the attack amount, there's a number of hits, and you have critical hit chance and critical hit amount. So there's a lot of information that goes into that. So what we've tried to do is represent all of that information as a damage dealt amount. So rather than the damage that the unit produces, it's the damage that will be dealt to another unit. And the way we've done that is we set up a scenario where each character faces a average level opponent. So when I say average level, it's got an average number of health points, an average attack, and an average block amount. So it's a typical enemy. And we've scaled that encounter to represent the situation you would face when you're playing in a tournament arena at common level. And whilst some characters may perform better or worse at certain levels, that seems to be the best reference point, anchor point, to be able to do this comparison, just to be able to simplify into two different numbers. And the reason we've chosen two numbers is because each character has a melee attack, and then some characters have a ranged attack. We need to really show where a character is better at range, or where you need to get close up and melee in order to do the damage. The other thing I should say is that Tacticus is quite a strategic and has a lot of depth to it, and so that's one of the reasons why the damage calculation is quite complicated to represent that depth. And that's actually one of the things I found really interesting. There's a lot of strategic play and options and way you can do things, and so we've had to simplify that in order to strip away some of that strategic element. So some of the more advanced players may find this an oversimplification, because there's strategy that can make characters that seem to be weak and more powerful, but this is really an entry level to make sure that everybody has the same understanding, rather than requiring you to have some strategic in-depth knowledge about a particular character.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really useful point, isn't it? Because there's lots and lots and lots of different variables, and anyone who's played the game for any amount of time will know even basic things like elevation or melee versus ranged. Your characters will have hugely different damage outputs. But what we wanted here on this infographic was just to give you some frame of reference to say, actually, this character is going to be much better in melee than ranged, or this character is just going to be a bit more of a tank than another one. So
Exactly.
yeah, great. But another thing that we spoke about is that, again, anyone who's played the game will be able to tell you as well, is that it's not all about stats, is it? There are clearly other pieces of the puzzle in terms of figuring out how useful a character is, and we've internally already spoken about some examples.
Yeah, so Sybil's a great example. If I just expand upon what you were saying, so if you think about a character as having a power pie, their kit is powerful or not, depending on four different things. You have the raw stats, which is what we're looking and talking about today. You also have the character's abilities, the special things that they can do. You have a character's traits. Some characters have lots of traits and some characters have no traits. And then you also have how the character interacts with other characters. So those four things really make up the total power of the character.
Yeah, and I think that's a really nice way of putting it, and kind of rounding out that four-piece pie. I think we spoke about how much more we could have added to this infographic and how much more information we could get out there, but we thought we would start slow and just have this as a sort of useful baseline. There's lots of things that we can include in the future, and we've hinted at some of that in this video. But if you're a listener and you think there's something that you'd like to see on this spreadsheet in the future, please let us know in the comments section or on Discord or somewhere similar. The video's probably gone on for slightly longer than we both intended at the start, but that's fine. I think we've talked about a lot of really, really useful things. So we'll maybe wrap it up there. Towen, thank you so much for coming on and for giving me your time and working on this with me. I've included your refer a friend code here because none of this would have been possible without you, and I really appreciate all the time that you've taken. If you're a listener or a viewer that's new to the game, please consider popping in Towen's refer a friend code. It will really help him out and help both of us to continue producing similar content like this in the future. And the final thing I'd like to end on is just a small note. Both the Pants of Horus cluster as well as the Eternal Nexus cluster are both very successful clusters in the game, and we're now going through a transition period in Tacticus where all of the guilds are increasing in size and we're always looking for more recruits. So if you are somebody who's looking for a home in a friendly cluster of people, I would encourage you to check either the Pants of Horus or Eternal Nexus clusters out, and I'll leave a link to both of the Discords down below for you to explore those opportunities.
I was just going to say, Nandi, both Pants of Horus and Eternal Nexus are great community clusters, and you can't really go wrong with joining either. The main difference, I would say, is Eternal Nexus is slightly smaller, with just 4 guilds, where Pants of Horus, I think you're up to 12 or 13. So it just depends on whether you want a slightly smaller or slightly bigger community, but they're both really friendly places to hang out.
Yeah, exactly that. I think we're actually up to 19 now, but
Oh, right.
yeah, I think 19 is the maximum I've been told. But yes, you're right, and I would recommend both very highly. So thanks again. I hope you have a nice day, Towen, and thanks to the listeners as well.
Okay, have fun.
Bye.
Doo-doo-dee. It's Nandi.